Hello fellow space engineers, this is Marcelo from ACFM Gaming, and today we're back at the familiar subject of torpedoes. To showcase torpedoes as a weapon, we're going to make use of this recently published ship in the workshop, the Komodo class destroyer, that is designed by Whiplash. And to showcase the torpedo's effectiveness as a weapon, we have my old favorite, the Infinity class carrier, this time in its latest incarnation, courtesy of its creator, Kai Killer. Now, I was commenting in my YouTube channel that I feel kind of bad for always using the Infinity carrier as a target, but there's a reason behind it, and I want to show you why. I think the Infinity can be used as an example of how to design a ship and actually build it both in survival and to operate in that environment. For example, here we have armor layering, which is an important feature. We have components that are protected on the inside by layers of armor, but not just layers of armor. At the same time, those components serve as armor themselves for more precious objects, for example the fighters or the mining drones you're gonna have in this carrier. Not only that, the ship also features a sandwich design. Let me quickly show you here. Let's see, where do we break? Okay. Here is the crawl space for the refineries, and refineries are one of the toughest blocks in the game. As you can see, we have the outer layer of armor, then empty space, then a super hard block, which is the refinery, and then a softer layer of armor, which is the interior block. All of that protecting the crew in this passageway. Same feature can be observed for key components like control panels, the cryopods, and the all too useful medbay. Now for my torpedo target, I'm going to take a look at the reactors. One of the main faults in my retrofit of this ship was not layering up the reactors enough, and I think Kai took note of that and actually implemented this feature in his further update of the Infinity. As you can see, the reactor is sandwiched in between these layers of light armor, the outer layer of heavy armor, and there's actually a separation in between them, and this is going to prove very successful at stopping kinetic based weapons. My retrofit of this carrier doesn't have that, and I think I'm going to make sure to add it. Now this will allow me to segue into more design characteristics when I talk about the torpedo firing ship, the Komodo class destroyer. Okay, the Komodo class destroyer is a classic destroyer in all the sense. As you can see, it's a thin, long hull, it's built for speed, and it's purely an attack ship. Its main weapon are these belly-launched torpedoes that are very effective at reaching a target and reaching full speed quite soon due to these massive small ship large thrusters. Now, lately torpedoes have seen or have been resurrected as an effective weapon, and especially in survival. Actually, Kai was telling me that he manages to use torpedoes to single or like headshot the Argentavis class carrier that appears in survival. This is due to the fact that the Argentavis has only one single main reactor, so if you manage to take that out, then the entire ship is gone. So these torpedoes are meant for a specific type of target, which is a slower, larger moving ship. If you have smaller vessels like corvettes or maybe even another destroyer, it's going to be hard to hit depending on the skill of the pilot. And we learned that in our battle test series. Now, like I said before, this is the main offensive weapon as the Komodo class destroyer. It has an impressive array of defensive weapons too, but as you can see, they are laid on the sides, and they cover both top, bottom, and the side, as well as the back of the ship. They are meant to, I guess, not fully attack an opponent that is directly in front because of the positioning of the guns. As you can see, they are side by side, so this turret is most likely, this missile turret is most likely going to destroy this Gatling turret if it tries to fire forward. You know how turrets behave in this game. So ideally, you want to use this destroyer as a main offensive weapon and have these guns defend against opponents that may try to attack you, most likely smaller fighters or bombers, while you're aiming the entire hull of the ship at the target. That way you can concentrate on your target and let these turrets fend off these smaller attackers. Now, like I was saying before, torpedoes have been kind of like resurrected lately, especially because since that whole mishap with the collision damage was fixed, now collisions do the usual damage, or sometimes that can be actually increased, depending on how finicky the game is in multiplayer, when things shift around and blocks end up facing through other blocks and then exploding. Okay, so I've been following torpedo development recently, and I've been actually following quite closely the designs by Pennywise and Elysium. Those are very impressive, and now Whiplash has developed his own script, which he uses in this destroyer. Now let's take a look at the ship from the inside, and I want to show you some of those characteristics that I was telling you about. Ship features this automatic or automated airlock, which is quite impressive too. Now let's go to a spectator camera and take a look at the inside. So here we're back at the Komodo, and we're going to use the spectator camera to go through to explain some of the design features that I think are paramount for a successful ship, especially when it comes to damage control. Here, for example, we see the torpedo bay. And as you can see, it has mirror redundant cargo containers to feed the welders that are going to build the torpedoes. It has these gravity generators that push torpedo down. The torpedo bays themselves, they are protected by these heavy-duty airtight hangar doors. If we continue moving backwards, we have more redundant cargo containers. We have the jump drive right on the front, which acts sometimes as a buffer for damage, and it's actually protecting the gyroscopes, and you know how finicky gyroscopes are. And this leads us to, pardon for the lighting, but you know how this DX11 is. Okay, there it is. So you know how finicky gyroscopes are, and ideally you want to have them anchor towards the center of the ship. I've seen people actually, and I used to do that quite a lot before, they anchor gyroscopes against the outer layer of armor, and that's a big mistake, because usually the outer layer of armor is the one that's going to take a beating, and then you have one gyroscope loose, then that gyroscope in turn cuts loose another one, and then another one, and then in the end you're going to have a ball pit inside of your ship, which is basically shrapnel banging around. And in my experience, I see more secondary gyroscope damage, which ends up being greater than the initial torpedo hit or the initial impact that you received. Also, another important characteristic is this very well designed cluster of smaller reactors. Now, a cluster of smaller reactors might not be as efficient as a single large reactor, but what this enables you to have is a ship that is going to resist or still be operational after being hit in a crucial area. For example, if you lose your main reactor, or if you even lose half this cluster, or maybe another cluster that you have placed elsewhere in your hull, your ship is going to be still operational. Here we have the airlock, and now a cluster of batteries. Batteries are really heavy, but at the same time they can act somewhat as armor. So it's usually good to have them separated. Here you have two power systems quite apart from each other. And you see a progression here. You have weapons on the nose, then a heavy duty block, followed by protected gyroscopes, then an empty buffer area, then the key components or the key blocks like the med bay, which is right next to the CIC the way it should be, because I mean, if you lose the med bay and you lose the CIC, basically the ship is gone. So you want to have those protected, and you want to have those as far away as the nose of the vessel as possible, especially if it's an attack ship like this one, which is going to have its nose pointed at the enemy at all times, ideally. So you want to put those blocks ideally in the middle, amidships. Sometimes aft, but like I mentioned earlier in other videos, what I like to put aft in ships is the main reactors and engineering sections, cargo, so you don't have a container burst and then, destroy everything. That's why I think having a smaller containers for this manufacturing torpedo area is a better idea as opposed to just having one big large container. Again, here we have gyroscopes that are not directly anchored towards the outside. You see, although they're anchored upwards, they're not anchored against the most exterior block. Now the key component of the programmable block with the timers, which actually controls the torpedoes, of course, it's gotta be protected here in this area, which contains the navigation bridge, which is very well designed, I have to say that, and protected too, and the CIC, which is basically a bunker, and you can see that it has heavy armor layering here, and then it's protected by the engine nacelle, which has ribbing made out of this blaster block, which is super tough. Now each turret has its own independent magazine in case you lose a portion of the ship and maybe the main conveyor line gets severed. These turrets can still operate with their internal magazines. Oh, hi. I have a new crew member. Okay. Continuing on, we have this large thruster, which is very, very well protected, as you can see here. It's obscured with these two heavy armor blocks, so those two armor blocks. And at the same time, another idea that I encourage in designs is having engine nacelles that include the retro thruster on the front. I've seen people actually place the retro thrusters at the bow of the ship, and then they lose retro, and then they end up ramming whatever they're trying to shoot and destroying half their ship. This way the retros are protected and you retain agility, you retain braking capabilities, and that's really important, especially after the last patch that nerfed down the whole retro boost that you have, the whole inertia dampening boost. Okay, moving on, we have a cluster of layered main thrusters. As you can see here, we have 3 on the back and then 5 amidships. So overall, this ship is relatively thin, is not the biggest destroyer out there, but it has enough redundancy and it has enough armor layering to, let's say, match up or match a ship made out of exclusively heavy armor and possibly heavier. Okay, let's shoot some torpedoes. This is the main control station for the weapons in the Komodo, and I'm gonna show you here how it's laid out. We have fire main gun, then the blast doors for the torpedo base, then 3 cameras, the first one being target in view, Second one is the secondary targeting, and then a camera that lets you see really close to the openings of the torpedo base. Then the the player control rocket launchers, a way to turn on and off the turrets, and the jump drive. Now let's cycle through the cameras. This is the main targeting. As you can see, it's at the bow. Also allows you to fly the ship when on approach to a target. This is the secondary target, and this one shows us the torpedo base. Now, let's see. Okay, torpedo bays are closed. Torpedo bays are open. Nice, everything is functioning. Let's aim at the target, and I'm gonna aim. I have to remind you that these are kind of like wire laser guided torpedoes. So you point at them at the impact point in the target. So they're fairly well guided, but you have to take into account for target leading. But this is stationary target, and I want to use the infinity like that to show the maximum damage potential that the torpedoes have. Then we're going to do a test with the infinity is turrets activated, so you can see how effective they are in an actual combat situation. Okay, firing torpedoes. We have a nice audio cue. There goes torpedo 1, there goes torpedo 2. In a really cinematic way, and then they get welded back. Now let's, as you can see, if I move, I can guide them. Oh, the guns were active. And we have an impact. That's amazing. We have to go and check that out. Okay, here we are at the Infinity Carrier. And as you can see, the ship is drifting away. I thought I had the turret set to not engage. They were owned by me, but I don't know if the torpedo was neutral or maybe didn't check. And Kai had the turrets to shoot at moving objects. I don't know. And this is a new development. In previous testings, I was only able to destroy a single large reactor and the torpedoes didn't go through. But as you can see here, there's a fair chance that a single hit, because one of the torpedoes got actually damaged by the defending turrets, a single torpedo in all of its kinetic force goes through one end all the way to the other of the ship, and right now the Infinity is completely powerless. As you can see, it's shut down. Its two main reactors gone. Now this is a perfect hit, and the Infinity still has charge in its jump drive, so I'm not sure if it will be able to jump away. If it was like a PvP scenario, the defending player will be able to actually jump away. But I mean, like I was saying before, this is an ideal hit. You're not gonna have stationary targets in a PvE multiplayer environment. Most likely the torpedoes are gonna hit something else. But overall, like I was saying before, the torpedoes are back in business. This is an effective weapon once more. So let's do a final test and try to hit a moving target. Okay, so you can see here I'm using the invaders mod, and I'm gonna paste an infinity, let's say 5 kilometers away. That will give me time to try to attack it. Let's see. Okay, launching torpedoes. I'm gonna have to do manual calculations on the leading. torpedoes are gone. Let's see if I can manage to intercept. Whoa. Nice. Okay, let's fire second volley. Okay, this might be harder. They're being engaged, and we have more hits. The inertia that they... Oh! Too late. Uh-oh. Okay, let's see if that torpedo manages to hit it. Okay, let's fire some more. Oh, missed. Here we have a misfire. Let's try to get rid of this one. Okay, there we go. Where's the enemy? See if we manage to guide those other torpedoes. Nice. Oh, whoa, there's 3. See if we can get the reactor. Ah, missed. By a margin. Oh, okay, we managed to hit it with some of the debris of our torpedoes. Let's shoot some more. We'll do a damage review afterwards. Okay, torpedoes away. Okay, one didn't activate. Okay, we have a nice impact, and apparently the layered armor stopped it. Yeah, let's try to fire one more salvo. Uh-oh. Okay, I think that was it. Okay, that's one thing to keep into consideration. Do not fire on the move. I don't get why my turrets are not working. Okay, I guess that torpedo didn't make it. Okay, we managed another hit. Oh, I see. Nice. Another impact. Let's try to get rid of this one. Okay, another hit, but the target's still functional. And I think it's time for us to stop this test. Okay, it's time for damage evaluation. And I have to say that this ship is really forgiving. It took a beating, and an unnecessary beating, mostly because of my reckless flying and me trying to shoot on the move the torpedoes, which I know they are a standoff weapon that you fire and then guide when you are away from the, let's say, the firing envelope of the enemy's turrets. Still, the projector and part of the welding system, if not all of the welding system on the ship, is actually functioning. I have no idea why the torpedoes were misfiring. Maybe because I was moving, and you know how this game behaves with that. But as you can see, the projection here is still active. The welders are present. And we only lost part of the nose. That serves to explain what I was saying before. If you're gonna have a ship, an attack ship that is meant to face the enemy, you want to make this the nose really resistant and then place all of your important blocks behind that. And as you can see here, only the laser antenna got shot at slightly. Let's see. Yeah, lost 2 plates. But the bridge, the CIC is intact. This housing for the retro thruster took a hit but managed to protect the retro thruster. And as you can see, hits were being taken, even further behind. That means the armor layering works. Now the main thrust of the ship is intact, so the aft section of the vessel didn't get touched, which is what we want, because that's where we want to place our main thrusters and our attitude thrusters too, supported by some attitude thrusters on the front. But overall, like I said before, the ship is very forgiving. I've actually never flown a ship that can have this capacity of shooting the torpedoes besides the static torpedo testings that I did, but never from a ship, and I'm quite pleased with it. Now let's take a look at the damage inflicted, like in exchange, in the Infinity carrier. Okay, I am at the flight deck of the Infinity. I managed to sneak past the remaining turrets, but the ship is inactive. So let's see. The hangar completely tore open. We have almost complete destruction of the cargo compartments. And I guess we can attribute, oh yeah, there's a big chunk of ice there. We can attribute this secondary damage to all these pieces that burst out of the containers, which are quite a hazard. Okay, we're gonna go through here. So the med bay is still active, but we have complete loss of the control stations, along with the bridge that is completely destroyed. Okay, there's batteries. The ship still has secondary power. That's why the turrets are still active. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, they're shooting at me. Let's take a look from the outside. Okay. So one of the main reactors still active. We managed to destroy one of the jump drives. A chunk of ice. There's one jump drive still active, as well as one refinery. But overall, just by the contents of the cargo containers and, let's say, the overall loss of complex blocks, it's quite a good trade-off, like the volleys of torpedoes that I fire against the damage inflicted. So I would say that for the first time, a torpedo is actually effective at good damage exchange. Because, you know, before that we have torpedoes that were either too big or too expensive, and the damage they inflicted wasn't actually greater than the cost of manufacturing a single torpedo. You would basically exchanging complex blocks for just metal plates, and then metal plates and metal grids, which doesn't offset the effort to harvest. So I guess at this point we do have torpedoes that are like effective against this type of ship, a ship that is a bit slower, that is not as agile. Now what remains to do is a test between two torpedo launching ships, two let's say fast attack vessels that can fire torpedoes, to see if they can manage to hit each other before getting inside of the envelope of their turrets. Well, fellow space engineers, I hope you have enjoyed this video of torpedo testing. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section. I always love to hear new ideas. And if you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe. Take care.